Hello, Pink Collective, and welcome to Pink After Dark. Tonight's tales blur the line between true and fictional, so get comfortable, turn down the lights, and let's begin.
Good evening, Blackwood Insomniacs. It's your local ghost storyteller here, Clifford. If you're still awake, you're in the right place. The comments from the last episode were very divided, and I am surprised because I'm like, why would you join a sorority that has girls going missing? Maybe we don't know for sure, but if there's a chance, why take the risk? My roommate and I have been arguing about this all week, and the comments weren't helping. Harper says it's just a story, as did many of the commenters, and that the sorority's name can open a lot of doors for you. Many of you also said the girls were reported as runaways. I don't know about that. The fact that 2 girls went missing before I came to Blackwood, and I haven't heard anything about it, no missing persons posters, no warning from the school, is alarming. Especially since, how do we know they really ran away? Many other comments are fighting back, saying they didn't run away and that both girls were pledging to Delta Theta Rho. So I am firmly on the side of do not join. Harper, do not join. My roommate just flipped me off, so rude. No, don't blow me kisses. What would I do without you? Alex, wake up and come sort her out. Thank you all for your comments. Please take a second to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. This week's story, I chose it purely for the title, The Girl Who Was, Ooh, the Chills. This story happened before there were cell phones, before everyone could show their friends what they had for breakfast, or share memes, or be endlessly, inescapably connected to the rest of the world. This was a time when a person could simply disappear, and the silence that followed was far louder than anything we know today. A young man by the name of Blake was a student at Blackwood University. His family ran a successful law firm in Ravenbrook, and he was continuing in his father's footsteps, studying to become an attorney and, one day, take over the firm. Blake was a good student. He worked hard, kept his head down, and gave himself very little time for anything other than his studies. That changed the day he met Blake. The other Blake was not a young man, but a young woman, a freshman at Blackwood, bright-eyed and sharp. They met the way many great things begin, over something small. They both reached for the same history book in the school library at the same time, their hands nearly touching on the spine. As a compromise, the 2 Blakes agreed to share the book, studying together, at the same table so they could each get what they needed from it. What began as a practical arrangement slowly became something they both looked forward to without ever saying so out loud. Aside from sharing a first name, the 2 found they had a great deal in common. They both loved learning, and they loved learning from each other even more. Their friends would laugh and greet them with a theatrical wave, Blake and Blake, sitting in the library as though it were a fairy tale of its own. Over time, they began spending more time together outside the library's quiet walls. Coffee runs between lectures, school events where they'd whisper commentary to each other from the back row, and what they called after-study dinners, modest meals at modest places, stretched long into the evening because neither of them was in any hurry to leave. After-study dinners. That's adorable. Male Blake's father invited him to attend a legal conference being held in another city. They made a short holiday of it, a rare break from the rhythm of campus life. Blake was glad for it, though somewhere in the back of his mind, he was already counting the days until he could return to their usual table. When he arrived back at Blackwood, he went straight to the school library where they had arranged to meet. He stopped at the entrance. The doors were sealed with yellow police tape, some of it hanging loose where the wind had caught it, fluttering like something restless. The windows were dark. A small cluster of students lingered nearby, speaking in hushed, uncertain voices. When Blake approached and asked what had happened, they could only tell him what they had heard, that there had been an incident inside the library, that it would be temporarily closed, and that students should use the town library in the meantime. No one seemed to know anything more, or if they did, they weren't saying. Blake assumed he would find her at the town library and set off immediately, but she wasn't there either. A few days passed. Blake buried himself in his books, as was his nature, only ever glancing up for a moment, scanning the room for a familiar face that never appeared. He told himself she was probably busy, that there was a perfectly ordinary explanation. Then, late one evening, as the town librarian was firmly suggesting it was time for him to go home, Blake walked out into the cool night air and made his way toward the coffee shop he and Blake used to frequent. And there she was, Sitting beneath the warm amber glow of the street lamp outside the coffee shop, almost as though she had been waiting for him, as though she had known, somehow, exactly when he would come. She looked up when she saw him, and the relief on her face mirrored his own. They embraced for longer than usual, neither quite ready to let go, and then fell immediately back into the easy, unhurried comfort of each other's company. The student workers inside cast glances at them through the glass as they locked up for the night. They didn't ask the two to move. They simply left the table and chairs where they were, switched off the interior lights, and went home. The two Blakes talked and talked, their voices low and unhurried in the dark, until the sky began to pale at the edges and the birds started to stir in the trees above them. They said their goodbyes and agreed to meet at the library the following day. She never came.
Why didn't she go?
I don't know, Harper. Maybe she had to wash her hair.
Really?
Of course not. I know as much as you do. Now, shh. Blake waited as long as he reasonably could before his assignments drove him from the building. More days passed without a sign of her. Then, just as before, he found her again at the coffee shop, at their table, as though she had simply stepped out of time and back in again. She didn't understand why he hadn't come to the library. She had been there all week, she said, waiting for him. Blake frowned. He explained that the school library was still closed, that there had been some incident, and that he'd been using the town library just as the notice on the door had instructed. She looked at him with genuine confusion. The library had been open when she went, she said. She had been there every day. They let the matter go. The night was too pleasant to spend on a disagreement that didn't seem to matter much. Once again, the student workers began hovering nearby, visibly impatient. One of them even lifted Girl Blake's chair while she was still sitting in it, a pointed, if graceless, hint. The two took the hint, said their good nights, and agreed, once more, to meet at the library the following day. The following morning, Blake returned to the school library. The police tape was still there, now tattered and sagging, the ends dragging along the ground. A printed notice had been taped to the door, its edges curling from the damp. It read that the library would remain closed until the new month. Blake returned to the town library and hoped she might appear. She didn't. But they kept finding each other, at the coffee shop, at their usual dinner spots, around the familiar corners of campus. Each time, Blake was so relieved to see her that he never pressed her too hard about the inconsistencies, the missed meetings, the strange confusion over the library. He told himself it didn't matter. She was here. That was enough. And then, without his quite noticing, the new month arrived. The school library reopened its doors, and on the very first day, without any arrangement having been made, there she was, sitting at their usual table in their usual spot, with a book already open in front of her, as though she had never left. Blake was so overjoyed to see her that he didn't notice, at first, that the second floor of the library had been entirely recarpeted. Deep, new carpet that still held the faint chemical smell of something recently installed. He didn't think much of it. She teased him gently about where he had been, and he laughed and sat down beside her, and it felt like no time had passed at all. Their routine slipped back into place as though a groove had been worn for it. Study, dinner, study, coffee, until the evening when Blake was walking to the library and noticed a crowd gathered near the main courtyard. Not a celebration, something more urgent than that. Students moving with purpose, holding boards above their heads, their voices low but tense. A protest. The signs read, "Protect your students. We demand answers. Cult activity on campus." Blake wasn't interested. He had an essay due. He was halfway past the crowd when he saw the face on one of the signs. He stopped. It was her, a photograph of Girl Blake, printed in black and white, held aloft on a wooden board. Beneath it, in bold letters, "Justice for Blake Scott." He stood very still for a long moment. Then he approached the student holding the sign and asked, quietly, what it meant. The student stared at him as though he had asked something incomprehensible. Didn't he know? Where had he been? They told him to go to the university archive, to find the newspapers from the week he had been away with his father. Blake did exactly that. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Keep reading, woman.
He sat alone at a reading table in the archive room, the newspaper spread open in front of him, and he read, Blake Scott, a freshman at Blackwood University, had been found dead inside the school library. The circumstances, according to the paper, were being treated as suspicious. A source described what had been found at the scene in terms that the reporter struggled to commit to print, the words ritualistic and deliberate appearing more than once. The date of her death was the same week he had been away at the conference with his father. Blake set the newspaper down. He sat there for a very long time. He thought about the looks he had received from the staff at the coffee shop and the restaurants, the barely concealed unease on their faces, the impatience that, at the time, he had taken for irritation at two students who stayed too late. He thought about the way they had never spoken directly to her, never taken her order, never acknowledged her at all. He thought about the new carpet on the second floor of the library. He didn't let himself think about that for long. That evening, Blake went to the coffee shop. He sat down at their table beneath the street lamp, the newspaper folded in his hands, and he waited. She came. She settled into the chair across from him with a smile, bright, familiar, entirely her. She asked how he was. He told her he was sorry he hadn't been at the library. She told him not to apologize. He smoothed the newspaper out on the table and slid it across to her. She reached for it with a small, curious smile, the kind she always had when he showed her something he thought she'd find interesting. The smile faded slowly as she read. The street lamp flickered once. The night around them was very quiet. When she looked up, her eyes were steady and clear, but there was something in them that hadn't been there before, a knowledge, deep and sorrowful, settling into place like a key turning in a lock. Blake tried to smile for her. He couldn't quite manage it. She reached across the table and took his hand in both of hers. "Thank you," she said softly, "for still waiting for me. I can say goodbye now." She let go of his hand, and she was gone. Not dramatically, not with a flicker or a sound or a cold rush of air. She simply was there, and then she wasn't the way a candle goes out, the way a song ends, the way someone leaves a room before you think to look up. Blake sat without moving for a long time. The street lamp cast its warm, indifferent light down on the empty chair across from him. He didn't even realize he was crying until one of the coffee shop servers came outside and gently touched his shoulder. "Excuse me," the server said carefully. "Will your friend be coming back?" Blake looked up. He blinked, and then slowly he smiled, the first real smile he had managed all evening. "No," he said. "Thank you." She went home. Wow. Goosebumps. Actual goosebumps. That story gave me chills. Alex, I don't know where you find these stories, but that one was. That one was sad. Really, truly sad.
He was dating a ghost?
Harper. She is not wrong, but still, the timing, Harper, the timing. What do you all think? Was it real? Was Blake spending all that time with the ghost of his friend without even knowing it? And can we talk about the fact that we completely glossed over who actually killed her? Alex, we need a follow-up. Who murdered Blake Scott, and what exactly happened in that library? Because the new carpet detail had me spiraling and I don't appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. Also, a quick shout out to all the students here for J-term. Welcome to Blackwood. Sleep with one eye open. That's enough from me, Blackwood Insomniacs. I hope you're all drifting off to dreamland by now. Peacefully, please. This is Allie. Good night, Alex.
If tonight's story stayed with you, become part of the Pink Collective by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Until next time, Pink Collective, stay curious, stay safe, and stay pink.